Okay, welcome everybody. So about 1 out of 5 of you, roughly, are new or relatively new, or haven't really lived through a camp season other than these quasi camp seasons that we've been dealing with for the last couple of years. So I appreciate you all coming tonight to hear a little bit about what we've been doing last year. And give me a second here. What we did last year, or this year actually, and what we're going to, no, that's not what I wanted. What we're going to be doing moving forward. So there's a lot of changes going on, a lot of things that are new to a lot of people, and including me. And we have a whole crew of people that are ready and willing to help you all figure out how we're going to do this year. Hopefully the lifting will not be quite as heavy this year as it was last year because of the COVID restrictions. Most of the campuses appear to have relaxed it a little bit. So that, I think, will be good news as we move forward. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and get started. I would like everybody to stay on mute if possible. I am going to leave the chat open. I will be saving the chat at the end of the evening. We're going to be saving the chats from the breakout sessions too. Those will be shareable afterwards to make sure that if there were questions that were brought up in the chats, that we're able to support you. But we have right now 124 participants here. We had 160 people sign up. That's more than the branches that we have. So that's good news. But we are at about almost 100 out of 120 branches. And some of those branches have in fact told us that they will not be participating this year either because their branch is no longer going to be operating the way that it had been operating, or they are going to sit it out for a year. So that happens and that's okay. And so there's nothing that says if you sit it out for a year that you can't come back next year. So that's one of the good things about the Tech Trek program, which, by the way, is going to be 25 next year, right? Everybody needs to start getting your head wrapped around that. This is going to be a really exciting time for Tech Trek as we go into year 25. So without further ado, let's get started. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. You can see all about my Sweet Harmony music stuff. Good stuff, huh? So this is the kickoff. And this year we have the Tech Trek Committee Branch Peer Support Group who is sponsoring this session and who are really going to be helping to lead this session. And that includes, I think you probably Mary. It includes Valerie Armstrong. And have we got Roseanne on yet? I believe Roseanne is also on the, I'll find her in a second and pin her too. And Roseanne Child from Alhambra, who's going to be, who also, by the way, was a camp director for many a year down here in San Diego. And me, who is down in La Mesa, El Cajon. So welcome, welcome. It's going to be a new year. It's going to be an interesting year. I'm going to talk a little bit about the camp season summary, and I'm going to cruise through some of these slides. Many of you have seen them more than once. So I don't want to be boring the people who have seen them. All these slides will be available afterwards for you to digest in the comfort of being able to scroll through them and check through some of the links. We're going to talk about next year, what we're going to be doing and some of the things we're doing with the alumni community. We're going to talk about, we're going to go into breakouts. So we'll talk for about 30 minutes and then we'll go into breakouts for about 30 minutes. And then we'll come back together for the last 30 minutes and we'll review tools and resources as a group for the last 30 minutes. So While we're in breakouts, we'll talk about schools dealing with families and camper selection. And those were the things, as we get into it, you'll see that I mentioned were important to all of you that completed the survey. So this has been the basic concept. We think of Tech Trek as a program. It needs the support of these three approximately equal legs in terms of building the program and keeping it sustainable. And a very key piece of that is you all. So we could not deliver the program. We could not fund the program. We could not do a lot of things with the program without you all. So you are a key part. And our key goal this year is to make sure that you have all the tools and support that you need from each other and also from us to make sure that you're able to do your job and to deliver what you need to deliver. The second goal we have is to really strengthen connections, and that's the alumni piece I'm talking about. We're going to try and get them connected back to you as tightly as possible so that as they go through school and into their future, that they come back to you as members, that they come back and they help deliver other members to you. And then, of course, we're going to focus on continuous improvement. I am a little bit of a Six Sigma geek, I must say that. So I do like to look at things from a very systematic way and try and figure out the areas that need the most focus versus low-hanging fruit. The only thing I want you to take away from this is that this part over on the left-hand side. In 2022, we had 1,500 nominations that narrowed down to 1,000 applications that narrowed down further to about 750 alternates and selected campers that we had in camp. So we had about 500 nominations that went nowhere. And so we need to think about how we are going to make sure that we're targeting the schools that want to play with us so that they make sure that they're giving us nominees that are going to support our application process. That's the only takeaway there. Operational goals for the coming year. We're going to streamline processes. And by the way, please save your questions or write them in the chat. Like I said, I've got a lot of information to get through here, and we can answer your questions as they go through. Mary, Valerie, could you keep an eye on those questions and interrupt me if something comes up that really is something that needs my attention right away? I would appreciate it. So, you know, we have a database right now, an alumni database that's over 14,000 campers. 135 of them are the campers from 1998. Of course, they have no emails. Some of them may have addresses. We may have, some of them may have emails because they've reached out to us since then. I did a quick review in LinkedIn and I found a bunch of them in very interesting STEM related jobs today. So I think with a little bit of focus, we can probably really do something with some of this information. And then we're going to have to make sure that we update as we make changes to our Tech Trek policies and procedures. Let's talk about Stanford for a minute. Stanford hasn't had a camp since 2019. It did not have a camp this last year. They came back to us very late in 2022. I want to say it was March. Cynthia, you can confirm that or not. I think it was very late in the game, and we decided that we were not going to move forward with Stanford then. They did come back to us this year. We have some issues with at Stanford, not with the staffing per se, but the fact that we don't have enough room to include staff on site, which is our model that we prefer, to have staff that do not just consider it a day job that they go to, but to help build that concept of community and a community of like-minded people that are all really starting to develop a bond. And so that is important to develop that identity, that sense of belonging. And that's really what we're driving for by having the teachers on site. what we found is that Stanford oftentimes made few accommodations to our requests, to changes for size, whatever. So in 2023, Stanford will be dark. It was very convenient for teachers to commute to, so that was facilitated. It may be more challenging to have some of those same teachers move to another facility, but the ones that we are currently talking to are UC Santa Cruz, CSU Monterey Bay, and Santa Clara University for 2024. This whole issue is exacerbated by the fact that we have our staff, which was 50%, 50% what I will call alumni that had come through the program, that had come back and served as camp co-directors for a couple of years. Well, life intervened, and their careers and their whatever was going on in their lives took them in other directions. And so we have a situation where we have no staff, and we have at this point in time no confirmed staff that would be able to take over at that facility anyway. So the issue, as I said, is just exacerbated. We are looking at an extra week at Sonoma for 2023. It would probably be in July. Diane Coventry, please correct me if I'm wrong in what we thought about. It is staff dependent. So we're going to have to find the same staff. This is not something the Sonoma team is necessarily agreeing that they would take on, but it would be an opportunity to add an additional week, which would be about 85 or 90 campers. So if we look at financials, I'm not going to go into detail on this. The main thing that you all should be concerned with is the concept of restricted versus unrestricted assets, in the sense that when you come to a camp and you say, I want to send 5 campers this year, let's say the price is $1,000 a camper. So you send the monies that equate to $5,000 worth for those 5 camper ships. Let's say you only send 4. Well, now you have a carryover of $1,000 from 1 camper. So you actually have a camper ship carried over that is worth $1,000. Let's say next year the price goes up to $1,200. Well, now you're going to have to make up that $200 for that camper ship, but you still have the camper ship. So those funds are restricted to a camper ship. They can't be spent. That's why we can't give it back to you at the end of the year. You put it into SPF, the Special Projects Fund, as a restricted fund, and it must stay there. The camps themselves may have other funds that are less restricted that they can spend, and you can give them other funds. But if you give them funds for 5 campers, that represents 5 campers. Those 5 camper ships theoretically could apply over to the next year. And that's how it's considered when you look at what are the restricted versus unrestricted. We have a whole project working on that. Kathy, Gail Chesler, I believe Sue Jennings is involved in getting involved with that project. It's working closely with the financial committee, finance committee. The takeaway here is really training. We're going to be using earlier camps for on-the-job training to try and intern some identified roles. We're going to have to do some modifications to the handbook, volunteer handbook, and all of you are going to fall under the bailiwick, if you want to call it that, of the volunteer handbook, because most of you are volunteering in some fashion. You are either volunteering as part of the branch selection committee, you're a branch coordinator, you are camp director, you may be a camp treasurer. In some fashion, you're probably involved. So you will have to make sure that you are, consistent, and that's a every year kind of thing. This is not, you get to do it once and done. This is something that you have to say every year, yep, I understand, because rules change from year to year. This year, for instance, we have to do specific sexual awareness training for camps because of the length of time that we are with the kids. So all of our adult staff have to go through a special training program that is like a 2-hour training program, even as volunteers. Camper tracking, this is going to be a big thing. So this, the real focus is going to be this Tech Trek alumni community. And alumni community is basically everybody that comes through the program, that actually completes and comes through the program. When we originally bring them on board, they agree that for 5 years, we can reach out to them. They agree to that up front. So it should be no surprise when we reach out in year 1 and say, hey, what are you doing this year? Has your email changed? Because a lot of these kids come in with emails that are middle school emails, and they're switching from middle school to high school in year 2. And so we have to try and find ways to keep up to date with that. There's a lot of information that we can glean from our alumni, not just in terms of the program and how the program is doing, but also this is a way to help them build some community. So we talked about the different ways that we might do this. And this is through this camper tracking initiative. And as I already mentioned, the 5-year Tech Trek ambassador commitment, that's a big thing. You need to make a big deal out of that during the interview process. When you talk to your campers, you should probably make a big deal out of it to your teachers in your school, because if they know the kid's only going to be there for a year, well, maybe then that's not a good candidate, or, whatever is going on there. But the concept is that when they complete their application, they agree that they're going to do this. And so we're just kind of trying to follow up with what they already agreed to. We're talking, I mentioned the 25th year anniversary. And so I think we need to take a look at where we're at with Tech Trek and say, hey, we're 25 in 2023. What can we learn from our story for the last 25 years that's going to help us make it even better as we move into the next 25 years of the program? And one way to do that is looking at drilling down into the story, maybe collecting some narratives, doing some ethnographies with some of the graduates that have come through. As I said, I found a bunch of them on LinkedIn just by searching their name. So they haven't changed their name. Some of them had dash something at the end of it, but they're still identifying with whatever, and a lot of them are involved with STEM programs. So I think if we applied a little work to that, that would be some very fun stuff that we would discover. And it's good experience for our Tech Trek alumni to get involved in doing research before they have to. So when they go to college, that's a lot of them are going to end up doing research. You typically can't get out of school right now without writing some kind of a research paper. And grant writing is always of value. So it can never hurt to have that. I think the other piece of it, we're looking at developing a reward program for people who do stay connected. And that may be, we're going to follow in the footsteps of Beach Cities in the Bay Area group, Tech Trek alumni group, who look at them, they value it in terms of scholarships. Who gets their scholarships? Who gets the funding that's available for these Tech Trek alumni? And they use this as an opportunity to measure that, or to come up with a metric for that. So we're working on an infrastructure. As you see, the due date of that is going to be next year. It's not on the front burner right now, in the sense that we're really trying to focus on getting you all ready for the coming season, the new campers. But this is going to be a bigger initiative focusing on the community after camp. And a lot of you emphasized that maybe you didn't think that this was super high importance, but I have to tell you, we have to be able to engage them to help us bring through the rest of the girls. So this is the power of this community, is going to be reaching back into our alumni groups and helping them help each other. And we're working on a branch handbook to help you do that. So those of you who want to start ones locally, we're going to put a branch handbook together. That's due at the end of this year. And that will be available to you. So you could start thinking about, how are you going to get engaged? What are you going to do? How are you going to do that? Now we're at the end, Tech Track Branch Peer Group Survey. This is where you all told us what you thought was important. Now, the only arrow thing here that I'm showing is the least important thing that you all thought was the after camp. And I'm not disagreeing that from your perspective, that is the case. It's the tail, it's not the dog. But if you think about it from the perspective of 14,000 girls is a pretty big dog. And so having 600 girls go through is a tail on that 14,000 girl set of data. So we really want to find a way to start leveraging those 14 or some of those 14,000 girls, particularly the several thousand, 3,000 to 4,000 that are still in high school and that can still help each other as they make their STEM journey. So if we look at out of the 117 branches, I think we may even be up to 98 or 99 this afternoon. 78 branches did submit a survey, and that's where all this information came from. Green for everybody's information. I'm very into visuals. Green represents more important on the left, and green also represents more expertise on the right. And if you look at the green on this left-hand side under the arrow, you see some green and yellow. That shows the more experienced people are at the top, the less experienced people are at the bottom. And so yeah, it's not surprising that the less experienced people feel that they're perhaps don't have as much expertise in certain areas. Biggest concern is systems and information sharing. So we are definitely going to be talking about that with you. So again, these are your top issues that you stated. I'm going to show you here a draft camp schedule. You can start thinking about this. This will be available in the slide deck afterwards. So, but these are just dates. They're not too different from what you've seen before. Right now, I'm seeing, we go through this process with the camper fees where the camps will come to us and they'll say, this is how much I think I need to have my costs equal my expenses so that I'm not having to dip into any kind of reserve at all. And in order to do that, most of the camps, even at the numbers that you're seeing under the 2023 request right now, most of the camps will still be in the red with these numbers that you're seeing here. So Fresno, I believe, wants to keep their number at 900, and I think they're not in the red. They may be one of the few that is not in the red, but I'm still waiting for confirmation on that. But so it's something to think about. It's never going to go down. The cost will never go down. It will only continue to go up. Let's see. So this is our basic timeline. This also is in your in some of the information that we're going to share with you in resources. So for those of you who are new, don't get too, shook up about anything yet. We still have some time. Now is the time when we usually look at starting to talk to schools about participation. We distribute flyers. We talk to you, tell us how many campers you want. We tell you how many you can have based on what capacity is available, and some other things. So that's all going to be happening here pretty quick in the next several weeks to 2 months. One of the questions, so you go back here, you start looking at these numbers and you start saying, all right, how many girls do I normally send? So how much money do I have anyway? So this is a treasurer list for all of you, especially the new people who maybe are not as plugged into this. This is a treasurer list, and they can help tell you how much money you have in your account. Typically, if you always send your campers to Whittier, then you'll probably go to Kay Clark. If you are in the San Diego area, La Mesa, El Cajon, you probably send all your money to Pam Meyer in San Diego. So these are kind of the rule, or not the rules, but these are the people that you talk to. And the most important people are the people that are bolded. The other people are just, kind of, they're counters. That's about it. Me and Kathy, right, Kathy? So we are going to go into, let me just stop sharing here for a second. We're going to go into some breakouts. And this is going to be a fun little time. We have, we're going to be about 10 minutes in each breakout. As I mentioned, well, let me pop up the slide again, just so you can see which breakouts are which.